Hello, all. Good evening, everyone. Firstly, hope all of you and your families are safe and in good health. Welcome you all to this webinar on impact of COVID-19 on financial reporting, wherein most companies are likely to be impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, either directly or indirectly, and the increased economic uncertainty and risk may have significant financial reporting implications, either as management or as auditors or lenders or simply as readers of such financial statements. My name is Inderpreet Singh. I head the investment banking practice at Incorp India. Experience of fundraising, transaction advisory, conducting due diligences, valuations for companies across sectors like manufacturing, healthcare, real estate, logistics, restaurants, technology, and so on. I will be your moderator for the session. To introduce the panel, Mr. Rishikesh Nasikar. He leads the assurance services practice in Incorp India, brings in 15 years of experience in assurance services to companies in construction, works contract, defense, real estate, textiles, entertainment, manufacturing, retail, and so on. He's a qualified IFRS professional, performed various Ind AS transition assignments and related advisory. He's a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and also holds a diploma in IFRS conducted by ACCA UK. Mr. Manish Agarwal leads the transaction support services panel in Incorp India. Manish has over 12 years of experience in providing assurance services, compliance advisory services to clients, again, sectors like manufacturing, EPC, media, entertainment, steels, textiles, healthcare, and pharmaceuticals. Manish specializes in designing internal control and risk mitigation framework for clients, as well as getting it executed to the last drop. Manish had previously worked with KPMG India for over 3 years as part of their assurance team. He's also a member of the ICAI. Any questions from the audience during this webinar can be posted on the questions tab, and we will take them up towards the end of the presentation. I hand it over to you, Rishikesh, to take this forward.
Thanks, Inder. Good afternoon to everyone. Welcome all to this webinar on impact of COVID-19 on financial reporting. Hope all are safe.
Just a second, Rishikesh, just to interrupt. For any of the audience who have difficulties in the audio, I will request you to click on the audio tab on the dashboard, where you have two options, computer audio and no audio. Just click on no, if you're not able to hear, just click on no audio once and then click back on computer audio. Your audio will start working. It's a temporary bug. If you still are not able to connect, please write to us on the chat box. Thank you. Sorry, Rishikesh.
Thanks, Inder. Yeah, I'll resume now again. So these are some trying times where everyone needs to understand importance of health and safety, but there is no denying the fact that economy of country is taking a severe hit. Short-term liquidity is a major issue for literally every business organization. Business with weak fundamentals are forcing possibility of shutdown. Impact of such pandemic on financial reporting is so substantial, just not in terms of financial implication, but also timing of occurrence, which is on reporting date. Post-balance sheet issues will play a major role in drafting of such financial statements. There is dire need of preparation of contingency planning and business continuity plan, just not to phase out current pandemic, but also probable recurrence of such events. Now let me go through key challenges which CFOs, finance executives, and everybody those who are charged with governance of entities would have to face. According to me, important challenge is deriving estimates, which is an important consideration in accounting and preparation of financial statements. Key areas for undertaking estimates are revenue recognition, asset provisioning, and subsequent events. Materiality will play a critical role here. How will the management put a value to it will be a challenge. Critical assessment must be made on item to item basis rather than random general thought. Whatever value you put needs to be justified to the auditors later. One needs to have structured justification for it, which must have bearing on the economic condition, not only prevailing one, but projected into the future of next 6 to 9 months. it is rather imperative to ensure appropriate level of disclosures in financial statements for the users to understand company stand as assessed by management, board of directors, and audit committee. Now, auditors would also be facing certain inevitable issues. In such times, one of the principal challenge for auditors is to undertake remote auditing. They would be going through virtual data, but without compromising quality of audit. According to me, some of the key auditing decisions are: first, obtaining substantive evidence of performing stock count at later date, and then undertake rollback procedures to derive at physical stock as on reporting date. The next would be fair valuation of assets when they are shown as carrying value. Next would be assessment of internal controls, considering risk control matrix priority might now have been changed considering changed circumstances. Then it would be extent of coverage for third-party confirmations. Then relying on reports from external experts. Now auditors may take help of such third-party reports for laying more assertion on financial statements, but this should not be done by compromising quality of audit. The things which are imperative to be checked by auditors should be checked by them. And finally, most importantly, validating authenticity of scanned documents. Such key areas, if any reservations or any kind of adverse remarks, auditors may appropriately qualify the report or put out disclaimer in the report. Any uncertainties could be dealt with by adequate disclosure for the same in key audit matters as well. Now, it is utmost essential that management should not forget that in recent past, there has been increased focus on professional auditing services. Hence, if auditors are extensively inquisitive and are seeking higher level of assurance, it is fine. Also, it is important for auditors to take note of realities of current times and empathize with management by undertaking just level of verification. ICI had recently issued an accounting and auditing advisory note for certain accounting issues, but no relaxations are given yet by ICI in terms of any accounting disclosures. Now let us go through certain key areas for readers of financial statements. Readers of financial statements who are credit rating agencies, banking authorities, auditors, shareholders, revenue agencies of government, and other stakeholders. They need to have a more myopic view while reading financial statements to differentiate between genuine business failures and frauds in COVID-19 times. Now, certain key areas which they should look into in any financial statements are as mentioned. First, disclosure regarding company strategy towards risk management. They may check company strategy for debt restructuring, employee benefit changes, renegotiation of lease rentals, and other fixed commitments. The next would be disclosure relating to management of financial statement risk in areas of inventory valuation, revenue recognition, and accrual of COVID-19 specific provisions. These are most material as per my opinion. They are dealt with in detail in coming slides. The next would be whether existing internal controls are operating effectively and new internal controls regarding remote working system and technology risk are operating effectively. They may check company disclosures and auditor comments for the same. If need arises and if the stakeholder thinks that the industry is prone to more risk, they may insist for separate report from management experts. The next would be impairment of financial and non-financial assets. These are also dealt with in detail in coming slides. Then next would be assessment of going concern by the company. How companies are looking at business continuity and access to working capital for maintaining essential business activities. Management must positively assert availability of formal business continuity plan. Such plan must be updated and effective in tiding through current pandemic related issues. And lastly, management's evaluation of post balance sheet issues. These are also dealt in the coming slides. Now let's start with specific guidance on accounting on specific issues. Institute of Chartered Accountants of India has come out with accounting advisory in which attention is drawn of account preparers to some of the important requirements of Ind AS and AS. Ind AS is generally applicable to listed entities, entities who are in process of listing, their holding and subsidiaries, and certain companies complying with net worth requirements. For everybody else, AS is applicable. One of the key area affected by COVID-19 substantially would be physical verification and valuation of inventory. Management needs to undertake physical verification at earliest later date after reporting date. They should employ adequate rollback procedures to derive at count as on reporting date. Ideally, assuming no movement in inventory in lockdown period would mean that physical stock as on such future date would coincide with physical stock as on reporting date. Management must conduct the same at the earliest, as rollback procedures would get more and more complicated for verification of auditor if number of days post recommencement of production increases. Conclusive stock records along with source documents should be prepared and readily available for submission to auditors. Now, standard prescribes that material must be valued at cost or NRV, whichever is lower. NRV, that is net realizable value, is derived at estimated selling price in ordinary course of business, plus estimated cost of completion and estimated cost necessary to make such sale. Such assessment must be made on reporting date. Any decrease in selling prices must be factored in calculation of NRV, assuming inventory would be sold at such price. So only to the extent of quantity that management estimates would be sold at such diminished rates, valuation could be done on NRV. However, if management anticipates that such decrease is temporary and short-lived in nature, they may ignore the same. Companies dealing in products with short shelf life, such as FMCG sector, season-based products, restaurants, would have to make such critical assessment. In lockdown scenario, fixed production overheads are bound to be incurred. For example, electricity, rent, minimum wages, etc. There are such overheads which are bound to be incurred irrespective of whether such production happens or not. Standard prescribes that allocation of fixed production overheads to cost of inventory, and inventory is based on normal production capacity. Any unallocated overheads are recognized as an expense in the period in which they are incurred. Now let's go through recognition of revenue. Now, variable consideration is a new concept in Ind AS, respective IFRS being IFRS 15, which is a revenue standard in Ind AS. This is revenue which is variable in nature and is subjected to compliance of certain pre-specified conditions. For example, price variations, performance bonuses, conditional discounts or rebates, liquidated damages, etc. Accounting of such consideration happens in either of two methods. First, the expected value and then the most likely amount. In expected value, probability is derived for occurrence of mentioned amount and multiplied by same. This is most widely followed method for computation of variable consideration. In most likely amount, selected unique options of amounts are probable in varied scenarios. Management must estimate which amount of revenue or charge would arise. It is to be noted here that these are pure estimates. Management must undertake independent critical assessment for each and every project. Due to change in estimates, it might happen that there results in decremental revenue. The management needs to revisit force majeure clause in contract. It implies the inability, either entirely or partly, of a contracting party to fulfill its obligation due to an event beyond its control. Now, such pandemic falls in such category of non-controllable events. Even if there is no specific clause in contract, Section 56 of the Indian Contract Act empowers the injured party to seek remedy. However, if management still anticipates incurrence of loss to some extent, it can be recognized as decremental revenue as per Ind AS. Companies in real estate, construction sector, and any such sector in which long-term projects are executed have to take necessary impact of variable consideration in their financial statements. Accounting Standard 9 deals with rules for recognizing revenue. Standard prescribes that if there is significant uncertainty of realization against sales, such sales should be postponed till the time such uncertainty is removed. However, if such uncertainty arises after recognition of revenue, provision for bad debts is required to be made with no change in sales. Now let's look into a distinct scenario to understand it better. In scenario 1, company has delivered goods on 15th of March with an awareness that realization against such sales is uncertain. In such a case, company should defer recognition of such revenue till the time such uncertainty is no longer there. Now let's assume that debtor has given an indication of payment on 15th of April. So revenue would be recognized on 15th of April. Please note that it is indication to pay and not actual payment. In scenario 2, company has delivered goods on 15th of March, but management becomes aware of non-realization of revenue after such revenue is booked, let's say on 28th of March. In such circumstance, provision for bad debts must be made. Further, if payment is realized prior to approval of financial statements by board, there won't be any need of such provision as it would be an adjusting event occurring after the balance sheet date. CFOs need to make an objective assessment with respective business heads on item to item basis. Companies catering to such debtors who have got worst hit by such pandemic, thus affecting their going concern, must make such critical assessment. Increased dialogue by sales team with such debtors would give them more and more clarity. Auditors may rely on such estimates by asking for backup documents. They may insist mail confirmation and other formal correspondences from such defaulting debtors. Auditors can further be assured by allowing them to take them part in sales team meeting for collections. AS7 deals with accounting for construction contracts. It states that if at any time management estimates that contract cost for certain projects exceeds contract revenue, such loss should be recognized immediately as expense. Due to COVID-19 issue, it might happen that management had to revisit additional contract cost which might incur. Such additional cost would now eat up all the margin of the company towards such specific project. Management needs to make an independent assessment of all such construction projects. Now, next slide is relating to accounting for provisions, contingent liabilities, and contingent assets. First and foremost, let us check treatment of onerous contracts. What is onerous contracts? Onerous contracts are such contracts for which unavoidable cost of meeting the obligations under the contract exceeds the economic benefits expected to be received under it. Relevant accounting standard states that any provisions which indicates present obligation must be recognized immediately. Assets dedicated to such contract to be tested for impairment before liability for an onerous contract is to be recognized. There could be losses from imposition of penalty due to delay in supply of goods. Such a charge may be treated appropriately by taking guidance of Ind AS 115. No future cost should be accounted for. Management must make critical assessment of all of their executory contracts, whether they have turned onerous or not. Now let us take an example of an office rental agreement. In such office rental agreement, there is lock-in period of initial 6 months. It might have happened that due to government imposed lockdown, the company can't operate in such office, since such office falls in government designated COVID-19 hotspot. Hence, management now intends to vacate such a place. In such case, there lies present obligation of rent equivalent to 6 months. Such present obligation must be provided for immediately. However, if company intends to continue to use such office space, normal monthly rent should be booked till the time such office is not actually vacated. Any future operating cost should not be booked in such a case. Management must be able to bifurcate between present obligation, future obligation, and conditional obligation. Contingent assets or gains are to be recognized only if recovery is virtually certain. Any accounting of such revenue would happen only subsequent to such occurrence of certainty. So if claim is made to an insurance company, an insurance company has accepted such claim amount, there is a formal document to substantiate that, then only it can be said that such gain is virtually certain. Now, recently, RBI had extended moratorium on repayment of all term loans. Consequently, all installments due between 1st of March 2020 to May of 31st, 2020 is not required to be paid. Now, there is an article in newspaper today itself that RBI is even considering extending such period by further 3 months. Companies have an option either to opt for such moratorium or not. This would bring relief to cash flows of those business entities who have opted for the same. Although opting the same is comparatively more costly affair, companies having immediate cash flow crunch may be benefited by such moratorium. Now, interest shall continue to be accrued on outstanding portion in such period. Company need to classify the same as current liability. Further, there would be change in repayment schedule, either due to EMI getting increased or tenure of loan getting changed. This would impact classification of long-term borrowings and current maturities on long-term borrowings. Now, I would request my colleague, Mr. Manish Agarwal, to continue with discussion on impairment considerations. Thank you.
So, am I audible to all? Yeah,
Yes,
thanks,
Manish.
Rishikesh. Yeah, thanks, Rishikesh. Rishikesh has given very insights, very wonderful insights related to inventories, revenue recognitions, provisions, and contingent liability. So there are also certain crucial aspects which are equally important for the preparation of the financial statements, like impairment of assets, subsequent events after balance sheet date, going concern assessments. So let's take each topic one by one. So if we talk about impairment first, so considering the present situation, it will largely affect all companies due to contraction of economic activity, which is a major indicator for impairment, and losses due to the impairment are likely to be increased due to this pandemic. It will impact both financial assets as well as non-financial assets. So what management need to do is, so they have to reassess of previous assumptions like payback period, discount rate, change in future cash flows, as there may be reduction in demand and purchasing power in public at large. Assessment of likelihood of default by the borrowers. There may be reduction in value of collaterals. So here, attention is required to be given where in case where lenders like banking companies and financial institutions will have to assess the market value of the collaterals, and if there is any shortfall in the existing value, they may ask for the additional securities from the borrower. Simultaneously, it may be an extra burden for the borrower to meet the requirement of securities as per the terms of the loan agreement. So if we talk about impairment of trade receivables debtors, simplified approach of ECL is used for impairment. ECL is expected credit loss. So is used for impairment where probability of default is analyzed based on not only historical data, but also current scenario and forecast of future economic conditions. Considering the current scenario, default in trade receivable will be higher in future. Hence, in that case, historical data may not hold true. Therefore, management has to evaluate future economic conditions for the determination of ECL from the trade receivables. Here, it is attention is need to be given as to how an entity can evaluate future economic condition of the trade receivable. Since this pandemic is unprecedented, so it is likely that a government may provide extension in finalization of financial statement. Therefore, subsequent collection till the date of finalization from debtors can be taken into consideration for the purpose of impairment of trade receivable. Management can use unconventional method also, like analysis of industry of the customer, one-to-one interaction with the major debtors, segregation of debtors based on their geographical locations or the industries in which they are catering to, and assess the credit risk based on that location and based on their industry. Furthermore, a lot of clarity will be available till the time of finalization, because most of the things will be cleared, because government, it is likely that government may provide the extension for the finalization of the financial statements. As far as accounting standard is concerned, for the purpose of impairment of trade receivable, the method discussed, it can be used. I mean, we can use the same method as we discussed in respect of impairment of investment, which is in the scope of F13. Management should impair long-term investment if there's a permanent decline in value of investments. If we talk about disclosures, so detailed disclosures of assumptions and sensitivities is required to be given. Also, the sources of assumptions and estimates need to be given. So question arise, and what kind of source of information and how it can be disclosed in the financial statements. So if we take the example of a manufacturing company, suppose manufacturing company is determining value in use for the purpose of assessment of impairment of PPE, property, plant, and equipment, then assumption of cash flow can derive from the sales order in hand or sales order received subsequently. Therefore, disclosures can be given in the financial statement that assumptions of prospective cash inflow has been derived from the sales order received till the date of the finalization, which comprise of 25 or 20% of the sales, which is 25% of the sales or cash inflows, which is assumed for the purpose of impairment of assessment of impairment. So generally, there's a dilemma whether computation of impairment of previous years can be considered during the current year or not. So if you take the example of an investment company where entity have transfer on the basis of their PE ratio and earning multiples, which would be high at the time of transactions, and accordingly impairment of brand value and goodwill were nil at that time. So due to COVID-19, situation has changed and management has to reassess all those assumptions, and accordingly impairment testing should be performed. If we talk about the impairment of development rights held by a real estate company, in that scenario, management should evaluate the value of development rights, keeping in mind the reduction in the price of real estate properties, reduction in profitability, higher cost of borrowing, and non-availability of labor due to COVID-19. So if entity is unable to assess the impact due to inadequacy of the information, the same should be disclosed in the financial statements appropriately. Of course, management should discuss this with the auditor, because it may call for modification in the audit report. So in short, if management are assessing the impairment loss, they will have to consider all those scenarios which happened or to be happened after the balance sheet date, and accordingly an informed decision is required to be taken. Moving to our next topic, which is related to subsequent event or event happening after balance sheet date. Impact of any event occurred post reporting date but before the signing of the financial statement may have to be given in the financial statements, depend upon the situation whether events occurred is an adjusting event or not adjusting event. Adjusting event can generally be identified if there is material information available post balance sheet date relating to a condition existing at the balance sheet date. For example, any outcome of a disputed tax demand. Non-adjusting events are those events which do not require adjustment to the amounts recognized in its financial statement for the reporting period. For example, declaration of dividend post balance sheet date. So as per Ind AS or accounting standards, entities must disclose significant recognition and measurement uncertainties that might have been created by the outbreak of COVID-19 in measuring various assets and liabilities. So what kind of disclosure is required to be given and how should be the same be presented in financial statements. So if you take the example again of a manufacturing company where generally based on historical data, sales return, historical data, the provision for sales return is done, and based on historical data, the quantum of sales return is around 0.5% to 1% of the total sales every year. But due to COVID-19, the sales return has been increased to 3%. Then fact should be disclosed that excess sales return is due to COVID-19. So it will help the user to understand that it is an external factor due to which excess provision is required to be made, due to which loss has been incurred by the entity. Auditor should assess subsequent entries, minutes of the meeting, MIS, to identify whether impact of the same is required to be given in the financial statements or not. Moving to our next topic, which is related to going concern, and it is very important. The financial statements are normally prepared on the assumptions that an entity is a going concern and will continue in operation for the foreseeable future. But in this scenario, most of the entities are virtually affected, where challenges of going concern is looming large. Further, management need to consider the fact if there is any qualification in audit report with reference to going concern, then it will be difficult for the management to get any kind of extended credit from the lenders or support from the investor. Therefore, management should critically evaluate the aspect of going concern, keeping in mind the factors like evaluation of subsequent event. Almost all subsequent event which has happened or which is to be happened need to be critically evaluated from the point of view whether management will be benefited from those events or not. Packages provided or to be provided by the government, and it should be analyzed how it will help to the entity in short term as well as in long term. Management should also hold talk with the customers and vendors, where management to insist recovery of outstanding amount as early as possible. They should also negotiate with the vendors for extending credit period. The management should also negotiate with the lessors to provide a discount in lease rentals. Prepare a long-term business plan considering the available resources and discuss the same with the lenders or investors, and take them into confidence that though in short term there are certain issues, but if support from lenders or investor is given, then they can come out with this situation in long run. Management should discuss the business plan with the auditors with the convincing evidence so that risk mitigation in audit report can be avoided. Now, it is to be, attention is required to be given uh, whether which period forecast to be done for the purpose of assessment of going concern. So, in assessing whether going concern assumption is appropriate, management should consider all available information for the future about the future, and which is at least 12 months from the end of the reporting period. But considering the current situation, it is advisable to the management that they should prepare forecast for the longer period. And of course, necessary disclosure as per standard shall also be made, such as material uncertainty that might cast significant doubt upon an entity ability to continue as a going concern. Auditor should evaluate business plans and subsequent effort taken by the management with convincing evidence. Auditor should also take into account the extended support from the lenders and investors. If entities disclosing in their subsequent event disclosures that an estimates of impact cannot be made due to the evolving situation, this may result in a modification of audit report. Further, apart from auditors, lenders, investors, and management also assess who prepared the data for forecast for the purpose of assessment of going concern. So, what are the external or internal factors which may compel the preparer to take the biased decision? If there is a biased decision, of course, the informed decisions cannot be taken by the management as well as lenders and investors. And of course, it will present a negative impact on the lenders and investors. So it is very essential that the decision should not be a biased decision. So therefore, it is to be critically evaluate who is the preparer. So those external factors may be some factors related factors may be reporting to PE investors, bankers, or internal factors may be bonus to the preparer or promotion to the preparer if is presenting the good picture of the organization. Moving to our next topic, which is related to work done by the management expert. So there are a lot of estimations and assumptions are involved with reference to determination of impact of COVID-19 on the financial statement and assessment of going concern, for which sometimes specialized knowledge, skills, and expertise are required. Therefore, management are free to engage experts from outside the organization for the purpose like valuation of movable and immovable properties, estimation of useful life of PPE, for the purpose of market research, etc. But before appointment and external resources, before using the work of an expert, management and auditor should consider certain facts like scope of the work and limitation involved in the same, competency and capability of the expert, whether expert is independent or not. There should not be any biased decision by expert. Whether appointment has been done by authorized person only. Moving to our next slide, which is related to presentation of the financial statements. So various standards describes various disclosures requirement in the financial statements. But with reference to COVID-19, certain specific disclosures are required to be given in the financial statements. So all the disclosures should be adequate with explanatory notes because current year may not be comparable with the previous year number. And if details are not provided, then user may not be able to take an informed decision due to reason of variation from previous year number. So another point is classification of balance sheet item into current and non-current, which are to be evaluated and disclosed accordingly. For example, suppose any long-term loan have been recalled by the bank due to breach of any loan covenant. So it is to be considered whether it should be disclosed as a current item or a non-current item. There are certain other disclosures which management should disclose for better understanding of the financial statements, like whether losses due to COVID-19 should be disclosed as the exceptional or extraordinary item in the profit and loss account. So all items of income and expenses should be classified according to their nature under the relevant income or expenses on the face of the filing profit and loss account. There are only certain items which can be disclosed separately, like impairment of inventory or PPE, reversal of the same, and disposal of investment or PPE, etc. Therefore, separate disclosure can be given under the heading of other expenses by subheading losses from COVID-19 in the notes, or alternatively, separate disclosures can be given by way of notes also, and amount can be disclosed accordingly. But on the face of the balance sheet and on the face of the profit and loss, separate disclosure should not be given. If we talk about accounting standard, disclosure by way of extraordinary item can be given based on any event or transaction. So in accounting standard, losses due to any event is also covered. So we have to see that whether the COVID-19 situation with losses incurred due to COVID-19 situation is covered under accounting standard or not. But in my opinion, a separate disclosure of the losses of COVID-19 should not be given on the face of the financial statement according to accounting standard also. It should always be disclosed by way of notes, or it should be disclosed under the heading of other expenses in the notes. So if we talk about the separate disclosures, so what kind of separate disclosures to be given in the financial statement? So it is advisable that impact due to COVID-19 should be assessed and separate disclosure is required to be given. For example, impairment loss has been increased, or there is increase in sales return in the comparison to previous year. Then management has to assess first that such increase is due to COVID-19. Secondly, impact in terms of amount should be assessed. And thirdly, such amount should be disclosed in the note stating that company incurred a loss of X amount due to COVID-19 in terms of excess sales return or excess impairment loss. If you talk about the repercussion, if specific disclosures has been given in financial statements, so it will help the user to understand that excess losses or reduction in profitability is because of the pandemic and not because of existing liquidity crisis or fraud. It will give a message to the user that impact of pandemic may be temporary and company can recover sooner or later if supported by bankers, government policies, and investors. So RBI has, issued or give some certain benefits to the borrower, that they can avail they can avail the facility of deferment of payment. So if the company has availed that deferment of payment facility, whether the same should be disclosed in the financial statement or not. So in my view, the fact should be disclosed in the financial statement, because anyway, repayment schedule is required to be disclosed in the financial statement. And if facility to defer the payment of loan is availed, then either tenure of repayment will increase or amount of EMI will increase. So which will differ from previous year. So disclosures is required to be given of the fact that the company has availed the deferment facility, and so that it can be compared with the previous year numbers or disclosures. Now, question will arise whether if company has availed this deferment of repayment of loan, whether auditor need to qualify or need to disclose this fact in their CARO report. CARO is a part of audit report. So whether auditors is required to disclose this fact in their report. So in my opinion, if is there a default, if there's a default by the borrower in repayment of loan, only then a disclosure in audit report is required to be done. But in such case, deferment is given by the bank itself. So therefore, in this scenario, there is no default. So accordingly, no disclosure is required to be made by the auditor in their audit report. So moving to our next slide, which is related to whether COVID-19 situation is a one-time impact or it's a long-term hit on the economy as well as on the financial statements. So we need to consider certain factors, like the period of lockdown is just 1 month or 3 months, 4 months in some places, but the psychological impact of the same will last long till any vaccine is available in the market. So of course it is going to it is the impact of which is going to be there in the long run. If we talk about working class people, so nearly 400 million people are affected in India, and many fears of losing their job due to closure of many entities, in which tourism, aviation, and hotel industries are badly affected. So definitely, it will take a long time to grow and revive those industries. Of course, again, if vaccines are not available within few months, then of course it will take a significant amount of time, and accordingly it will impact the economy, and as well as it will impact the financial statement of any company. Further, India's economy relies on the unorganized sector, and improvement of Indian economy largely depend upon the same. Therefore, reshaping of the same is very important. Hence, right policy framing by the government could be a game changer for post COVID-19 situation. But again, it will take a significant time, because there's a lack of coordination between the state government and central government. We should also not forget that the forecast of growth in GDP is nearly 2%. So again, it's a very huge difference in past years, if the GDP growth of past years. So if we have to reach at the 6% or 8% growth rate, so again it is going to be take a significant amount of time. So in this way, in my opinion, it can be concluded that impact of COVID-19 is a long-term hit on the economy as well as on the financial statement, which may take 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years down the line. So these are my point of view over COVID-19 on financial statement. Thank you very much. If any questions are there, I and Rishikesh will be happy to answer. Over to you, Inder.
Thanks, Manish. Thanks, Rishikesh. There are a few questions. We'll take them up. Rishi, a few questions for you.
Yes.
So the first one is, how do we tackle debtors provisioning under the expected credit loss, the ECL method, since a lot of these historical trends will not be reminiscent of the reality in today's times?
Okay. So very pertinent question over here. Now, ECL working, expected credit loss working on trade receivables is given in Ind AS 109. So that Ind AS states that one of the condition being, it is just not only the past events which should be taken as a basis for computing ECL, but also current condition and future forecast. Now, this COVID-19 pandemic is something that there was no bearing in the past, but the current as well as future forecast would be there would be a substantial impact of that in current as well as future forecast. Traditionally, what used to happen, that company used to calculate ECL provisioning based on certain departments or verticals or some kind of bucket system they used to follow for computing a certain percentage of ECL applicability on various bucket of datas. And then what used to happen is they used to impose a percentage or some kind of a percentage based model and used to compute ECL provisioning as per that. But now, considering this current scenario, this method seems to be outdated. It would always be beneficial to make individual assessments of various datas, at least in case of large datas and who are substantially hit by this COVID-19 impact. So it is always better to undertake individualistic approach for computing ECL for various datas. So in certain cases, in certain companies, in case of certain companies where number of datas are huge and the amount per data is not that substantial, in that case, sectors could be made based on sectoral bifurcation should be made based on the area, the country, the industries which are most hit or most prone to COVID-19 impact. So, for example, MSME, for example, restaurants, for example, aviation, travel, tourism. These are the companies. This is the sector which is worst hit. So we could make buckets based on such data grouping and then derive upon an ECL method to compute impairment loss on datas.
Understood, Rishi. Thanks. The next question, you did touch upon the aspect of inventory verification. How sufficient are management representations for either stock verification or fixed asset verification?
Okay, so in case of management representation is a type of an internal evidence. So this is something which is generated internally. So obviously it has a bit of less reliability in terms of assurance to the auditors about the accuracy about any kind of statement made in that representation. But traditionally, auditor, in case of stock verification as well as fixed assets verification, traditionally auditors rely upon such management representation. Now, even now as well, in case of if auditors feel it in that way, they can still rely upon this representation. But considering the recent times, it might happen that certain auditors might ask for further affirmations. So further affirmations in a way that they want additional way of modes to be assured about the value as well as physical count of stock as well as fixed asset which is appearing in financial statements. So what can be done furthermore? So for example, you may undertake video recordings. Video recordings is right now a very important tool which auditors are opting for, and they're asking their clients to undertake. In that video recording, there are certain mandatory things to be done. For example, in that video recording, it should be seen that the inventory, labeling, as in the names of the inventory or the area of inventory or fixed assets, names of that fixed assets, the label as in the fixed asset is clearly visible. Then it should be done in a certain way. It should be done in a certain time or some in such this thing. The rules could be something which is discussed by auditors as well as management, and they have uh, jointly they have decided upon. And such kind of video recordings could be enough for auditors to be affirmed about inventory check. Otherwise, what they can do is that they can even ask for local third-party reports, as in local third-party experts. So, for example, if there is a factory of a client which is at a certain remote location in which it is not possible, or the video for conferencing or something, it's a big area of stores is there. So what they can do is they can ask for certain local third-party valuers or someone who is third party, obviously third party. So they could ask for reports from them, and they could tell them to undertake physical verification and give them the report, and that report could be relied upon. Auditors may even insist for some of their own person, as in someone from their own panel or local partners of auditors who could also be of help. They could take a report from that. They could take report from them, and that report would be enough for substantiating the quantity of inventory as well as fixed asset verification in this report. Further, to add to more transparency, management could even ask auditors to do test verification of any specific stock record. So, for example, there are A, B, C, D types of raw materials or stock records with the company, and auditor, based on their test check, they may ask that we want to do test verification of let's say A. So what they would do is that they would undertake their own verification as on the audit date, and then apply rollback procedures to compute the stock which was there on reporting date. So this could be an additional tool which auditors could opt for. Then there is additional documentation of system records and physical records, which could also be provided to auditors by the management to gain a more clarity about the quantity, about the quantificative verification of stock and FA.
Understood. Thanks, Rishi. I think also relying on representations is related to how strong companies' internal controls are. So that's also very important to see.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
Questions for Manish. Manish, on going concern, how does the management satisfy an auditor on going concern assumptions, given that they will be cash strapped, liquidity issues, and on the other hand, what are the risks an auditor faces in concern piece?
Yeah, so as I already mentioned that the management should prepare their forecast and business plan in detail with the, having a meeting with the stakeholders and the person who is driving the entity. And they can demonstrate those business plans with the convincing evidence to the auditors, like a major contract received post balance sheet date, or extended credit facility if they have received from the lenders, or any support they have received from their group company, or any support letter they have received from their investors. So in this way they can convince the auditor to certain extent that company can prepare the financial statement on going concern basis, and there's no issue in it. But auditors also, what auditors can do to minimize the risk of going concern, they can do their themselves. They themselves can prepare their evaluations, or they can compare the same with the management's evaluations. And if there is any variation is non-material, of course the auditors cannot. Auditors should provide an unmodified report. Auditors can also go for an external confirmations, like they can ask for the confirmation from the lenders who have extended credit facility, or they can directly write to the group company for the support, whether they will provide any financial support to the group company in case of need. They can also ask for the confirmation from the customers whether they are in a position to pay to the company in a short run or in a long run. So in this way, auditors can minimize their risk while reporting the going concern aspect. Yeah.
From a risk perspective, now with lockdown and work from home, how important is cybersecurity? Do auditors need to disclose lack of cybersecurity measures as a part of their internal control qualifications?
So you can see that during the lockdown, everyone is working through a virtual system. So therefore, importance of cyber security is increased to the large extent. Of course, it was also important earlier, but now it is more important because everyone is working from home. So the main challenges is the data security. How management can secure their data? So what auditor can do? Auditor can check whether is there any past history of data theft or any kind of situation where the data of the company was at risk. So auditors can take such situation into consideration. Auditor can also evaluate what kind of firewall system has been installed in the on the server, or what is the usage policy of the internet in the company. They can also analyze what kind of antivirus has been installed, and whether who can access to the server, or whether server has been located any third party or not. The auditor can also evaluate the backup policy of the company to ensure that the cyber security measures has been taken by the company. One more important thing auditor should consider, the data, how the data flow is happening in the organization, whether it is being happening through some general public domain IDs like Gmail or yahoo.com, or it is company specific domain. So this thing also need to be considered by the auditor while assessing the risk of cyber security, and accordingly he has to uh, provide mention this thing into their reports. Of course, if there's a lack of cyber security in the organization, auditor should qualify the audit report. Over to you, Inder.
Thanks, Manish. I think one final question we can take up, Rishi. I'll post that question to you. How
Yes.
do you salaries or incentives or bonuses, etc., which were due in March 20? Obviously, companies, because of liquidity issues, are either deferring or canceling them. How do you account for those?
Okay. So in case of salary is something a committed salary is a type of a committed cost. So unless and until companies or the management comes up with a decision that they are going to undertake some kind of layoffs or some kind of reduction in salary, the accrual of salary should happen to the extent of amount which is needed to be paid to the employees. Immediate payment for in term with the perspective of short-term liquidity issue, it might happen that many companies are deferring payment of certain salaries or to certain type of employees, to certain tier of employees on a subsequent date. So even in that scenario, that expense should be booked as on the reporting date. Actual payment might happen in future, but there are no relaxation considering if there any kind of relaxation comes from government. Right now there are no relaxation in terms of salary to employees. In fact, most of the government notifications are in a way that they are sort of not mandatory, but they are sort of asking for all the entrepreneurs not to deduct any salary of any employees in private sector. So if in future it might happen that government subsidizes such cost, then in that case the accounting would be done as per AS 13, accounting for government grants, and any conditional grants would be accounted for in that way. But currently, right now, there is no government notification relating to that. So I think so the expense accrual should be done in full, subject to if any layoffs happen, and then payment might happen in future.
Understood. Understood. Thanks, Rishi. I think we have time for one more question. Manish, I'll pose this question to you.
Yeah.
How do you classify? So salary is one part, but there are so many COVID-related losses. Can you classify them as extraordinary losses or exceptional items?
So if we talk about Ind AS, so all item of income, as already informed, as mentioned earlier, that all items of income and expenses should be classified according to their nature. So Ind AS doesn't allow the classification of any expense or income based on any event. It's based on the nature. So if there is any losses due to COVID-19, which is an event, it cannot be classified separately in the financial statement on the face of the P&L. Of course, detailed disclosures can be given by way of notes, but on the face of the P&L, it is not. It cannot be given. There are certain exceptions are there, like impairment of inventories or property, plant, and equipment, and reversal of those impairment. Disposal of any property, plant, and equipment, investments, or any discontinuing operations, or any reversal of any provision earlier made. So these things can be disclosed as a separate item, but of course losses due to COVID-19 cannot be disclosed on the face of the financial balance sheet. It can be given by way of notes under the heading of other expenses, or a separate disclosure can be given by way of schedule and notes in the financial statement. But if you talk about accounting standards, of course, accounting standards allow extraordinary items which happen through any kind of event. So if I take the example of a flood or earthquake, so due to earthquake, certain building has been damaged or certain goods has been destroyed. So in that scenario, that loss can directly be disclosed to face of the profit and loss. But due to losses due to COVID-19, which again is an event, but we have to create a direct relationship with direct relationship of those losses with COVID-19. For example, if there's an impairment loss has been increased, so we have to establish a link that due to COVID-19, that provision for that impairment losses has been increased. So it is advisable that not to disclose the things on the face of the financial statement. So it should be disclosed by way of notes or as a subheading under other expenses.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks, Manish.
to add to the explanation to Manish, I think so. What each and every management of company should do is they should follow this maxim: discuss and disclose. Everything should be discussed, and everything, as much as possible, it should be disclosed.
Well, that's helpful, Rishi. Thanks. So I think we are running out of time now. So thank you. Thank you. We'd like to conclude our presentation. Thanking all of you for taking valuable time off and attending this webinar. Hope this was useful to all. We will be sharing the presentation and the FAQs with the answers shortly. We'll be very happy to receive your feedback. As a part of the ongoing series, we will be holding our next webinar on the 12th of May, which is next Tuesday, on use of technology for corporate governance and cybersecurity. Details will be shared with all of you shortly. Do join in then. Thank you once again, and stay healthy and stay happy. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Inder.
Thank you, Inder.